So what's up, everyone? Today, Nikon just announced the new Z6 III, which is the third version of the Nikon Z6. And, there's a lot of great things about it. There's some stuff I love, some stuff I don't love too much. Just, of course, you can go online, go on their website, look at all their specs, look at all the informations. So I'm not gonna, get too technical with this. Especially, I do not have a copy of it. I've never get a chance to try on it myself. So this is just gonna be mostly my first impression and also, some of my opinion. But again, personal opinions, kind of like a preference. So don't take it too seriously. But let's take a look. So this is something to preface. I want to talk about Nikon's system, especially the Z system, right? I have almost every single Nikon Z camera. There's the lower entry level, which is C30, C50, and then you move up to 5, 6, 7. There's also the retro with the ZF and CFC, and then you also have the more high-end flagship camera with the Z8 and Z9. I think I have all of them except the Z9, but that's only because I don't shoot sport, so I don't really need a Z9. And I also find the Z9 a little bit heavier and bulkier. So Z6 is even smaller than the Z8, and for the longest time, I feel like Z6 is just a lesser version of the Z7. It does almost the same thing as the Z7, except with less megapixel, so a little smaller sensor. So back then, you have to choose between getting a Z7 or Z6 when they're both out. Then you kind of make a choice between that. And if you can, money-wise, definitely you should get a Z7. There's not a lot of reason to get a C6 if you have this money for C7, or if they're the same price, then you definitely have to go for the C7. But if you are right now who very serious about doing videos, which is what Nikon seem to be focusing on, especially since they bought Red recently, early this year. So I think Nikon, this is their way of saying, hey guys, I know we're behind on videos. We're gonna get serious on this. Like, we're finally gonna jump into this and want to tell you guys that this is what we're gonna do. So the way to do this is that you want to have a separation between your photos cameras and your videos camera. And that's just kind of what Canon has been doing. That's what Sony has always been doing. So Sony has their, the R series and the S series. So you can pick between, what you kind of focus on. They also have other cameras I really like, which I'll dive into that a little bit, why I love those rather than, what I have. But I am, very involved with the Nikon Z series. I love it. I've been using it ever since they released. As I said, I have almost every single camera. But let's talk about a little bit the Z6 III and see what they have here. First, let's talk about the price point. It is starting at $2,500, which is really attractive price point, especially with inflation. I feel like they actually might lose, if not break even, on this price point. For multiple reasons, because they're not using the same sensor or same technology from the other device. Some of this stuff are brand new, so if you make it specific for this camera, especially with the sensor, so it is a very attractive price point. It is a way to attract people to buy the camera. Then maybe they'll spend more money on getting the lens or other equipment that goes with this camera. So there's some key features they have. The one that they really focus on is the EVF, which is the electronic viewfinder, which is the little eye hole that you look into. It has a really high resolution display, and it has supposed to be very good quality. But personally, I don't really care for that, because if this camera is really focused on shooting videos, most likely I'm shooting video by looking at a screen or adding a monitor to it, or either way, I would rarely using the eye hole, because if I'm using the viewfinder, I'm putting my face against it. So if I'm using a gimbal, I would not put my face against it while I'm shooting. If I am, hand holding it, then maybe. But even hand holding it, this is kind of hard to get different angles. Especially if I go low, I would have to crouch instead of moving the camera below or push my camera high up. So yes, it is cool, but I wish that kind of technology or kind of upgrade is on the monitor instead of the viewfinder. But that might eat a lot of batteries, so maybe that's why they just do it. And one thing I've heard so far also from other creators that have already tried the camera is that because the viewfinder screen is so nice, it's actually different from the monitor because the monitor just cannot display as much information as the viewfinder. So in that case, like, all right, if I want accuracy, then the viewfinder is my only way to do so. So it's gonna be really annoying. I have to like always use the viewfinder, or I can just use the screen and guess and hopefully it looks good, or use the viewfinder later to check it to see if it looks good. So it's an interesting choice. I'm hoping that you're gonna adopt this technology onto the monitor or something else instead of just, putting it just into the viewfinder. Autofocus is great on this camera. It has, automatic detection for 9 different subjects. High-speed shooting can shoot up to 120 frames per second, but that's only when you're shooting JPEG. But if you're shooting RAW, I believe you can shoot 14 frames per second for full frame. I'll look into it. Video-wise, you can do 6K, 60p internal RAW recording, so you can record directly into your camera onto your CF Express card or SD cards. I'm not sure SD card would be fast enough for that. So, but at this point, if you're using Nikon or many other cameras, I feel like you should be going into CF Express at this point. VR, which is vibration reductions, not virtual reality. This time, this camera has 8 stops of built-in image stabilizations, which is really good. So shooting in the dark should be really helpful with this new camera. So on their site, they really focus on a variety of creators this time. They're like documentary, wildlife, portrait, wedding portraiture, documentary, cinema, all kinds of stuff. So it's nice that they're really paying attention to more than just photographer and also more than just one type of photographer or videographer. All right, let's talk about the speed, the photography speed about this camera. So there is a mechanical shutter, and of course you can still use the electronic shutter. But unlike the Z8 or Z9, which is completely electronic, this is a mechanical shutter, which is better if you are trying not to get, the jello effect and stuff like that. Mostly because this camera, the sensor is a partial stack sensor, which is supposed to be the world's first. But by the time the camera came out, I think there's another camera. I think Panasonic made another one that is also stack or partial stack. But for camera at this price, partial stack is already great. So as I said before, this camera can shoot JPEG at max 120 frames per second, which is quite fast. For RAW, not 14, you can shoot 20 frames per second RAW shooting, and you can shoot up to 16,000 of a second, and with immersed live view. So the viewfinder can also have 120 frame refresh rate. So looking through the camera viewfinder should be almost like eyeball kind of look, like I said, like you seeing your own eyeball. So it's really sharp, really bright. I'm really excited to try it out, but again, it's feel like a gimmick than more of a necessity for me at this point. Now let's talk about video. I will definitely get this camera because of the video feature. Photos, I'm gonna stick with my Z8. There's no reason for me to downgrade my 45 megapixel camera to a Z6. And I mean, unless the focus is so much better than my other camera, the photography side doesn't really have any advancement, at least in my opinion. Maybe faster shutter speed, but if you're shooting sports or something fast, you should be shooting something with a Z9, at least if you're shooting professionally. So this camera is really focusing on the videos. So for videos, this camera can shoot 6K at 60p, and also 4K at 120p. And Full HD, I can do 240. So that is something I'm really interested in using, which is slowing down my clip, get some very dynamic, dramatic shots at 1080p, 240 frames per second. That's not a big issue for me. So I will stick with 1080. At least I can get those slow, dramatic shots. When it comes to processor speed, it is using a faster processor than its predecessor, which is similar to the Z8 and Z9, or at least the same. They're using the 8-bit-7 for this camera, which is very useful if you need, the camera to shoot lots of videos or get lots of photos to help, buffer the photos. So it is really appreciated. The ISO range is also amazing on this camera. It goes from the base of 100 to all the way to 64,000 as the base. And of course, you can also extend it with, higher up to 204,800 ISO, which is great for, when you want to shoot kind of dark and, dramatic shots that you can't really use bright light. And the AF detection on this is also crazy. It can go down to 10 stop, which is amazing. According to the website, the autofocus system on this camera should be pretty good. It is 20% faster than the Z6 II. It's also more accurate detection of human face. It's just as small as 3% of the frame. So this is something that sounds great on paper, but really need to be tested out in person to know really how good it is, especially if someone turn around to see if you can still get them in focus. They did also pull in some of the features from Z8, which are like, the pre-release capture. There's, high impact portrait by skin softening, fine-tuned skin tones, better face and eyes detections, and of course you can use more picture control, which is their preset, or some company would call it their recipe to making sure picture looks rich, or different colors, different style that you can automatically do within the camera. All right, so this is the next thing I want to talk about, the LCD screen, the monitor. So I actually like this design a lot better than other Z cameras. The only Z cameras that have this design would be the Z30, and I'm not sure about the 50 or the 5. I don't actually not have the 50. 50 doesn't have it. I don't think the 5 have it, which is the flippy screen that can come out. We have that on the ZF, we have it on the ZFC, have it on the Z30, but not on the 8 or the 9, which I get it. For 8 and 9 to me is more of a photography camera. I do like where you can bring the screen out from this flat, just like this. So when I'm shooting down low, it's easy for me to pop it out. But for video, it doesn't make as much sense because yes, it looks great, but then when I want to do other angle, I can't see it without, being at a certain angle. And also if I put it, too high or too low, I just can't use it as well. And also the problem is that I can't see myself if I'm doing any self-shooting video. And it doesn't even have to be like vlogging, it could be just for when I'm recording portrait photos or videos where I'm like on the other side of the camera. With a flippy screen, at least you can see what I'm recording. It is not flush perfectly with the camera, so I know it doesn't come out all the way flat, but at least it should be enough for me to see what it looks like. I don't have the camera yet, so I don't know. But according to this, it does have a 3.2-inch vari-angle display with a 170-degree viewing angle. It's supposed to be pretty durable. The whole camera itself, it is magnesium design, and it should have you have like weather sealing, just like the Z8. So it should be able to handle some tough, environments. I know most people concerned about the flippy screen is usually it breaks. Haven't really heard that, but I feel like that was Nikon worry when they decided not to go with it. So, but hopefully this won't make them regret it, because I do like the flippy screen for video camera. Other stuff is that the camera also have dual card slot, which you can put a CF Express Type B and also a SD card in it, which is great. That doesn't hurt. It does have a one USB-C slot instead of two like the Z8, but it can let you to power it, control it, or transfer files. It does also have a full HDMI port, which is different than what it had previously with Z6 and Z6 II. So hopefully that's gonna able to output a little bit more information and maybe do some control with it. One last thing I really appreciate is this, the battery. They're still using this Nikon battery, which is the ENEL15C. This is great because you can still use the battery since back in even the D700, I think. This battery has been used for so long. Even my Nikon D850, it does use that battery. So if I put this camera in here, it'll fit perfectly. Sounds great. But the point is, the camera is still going to be using this battery, which is, if you've been using the Nikon Z camera, you should have a bunch of them. And also, if they don't have a new really big update to it, I see them, as a very good way to just keep their customer happy by, people keep buying this, and, give them more accessory sales based on just battery. With all that said, I am going to be purchasing this Nikon Z6 III, mostly because I need a new camera to do video stuff. I've been using the Z8 ever since it came out for doing all my on location shoots. But when I'm doing in studio, I'm actually using my other cameras, the first generation Z7, first gen Z6, and also the Z50. So having a new camera could bring the quality a little bit higher. But also, if I want to shoot video now when I go outside, most likely I might try using the Z6 instead, because it does offer some feature that the Z8 does not. But also the weight of it is much lighter than the Z8. It's also less bulkier. One thing I do hope, again, I am hounding on the viewfinder a lot. I really wish for Z6 they would actually take away the viewfinder completely. I know, it's wild. I really do not need it. For shooting video, there's not likely I'll be using the viewfinder to look at it while I'm shooting. So if they can do what Sony is doing with the FX3, just take up the viewfinder, maybe make the monitor better, make it lighter, make it smaller, make it more compact, I think that would make a huge difference. So maybe I'll see that in the Z6 IV, maybe, especially now they're pushing the difference between a photo camera versus a video camera. So that is something I do hope I will see with the Z6 IV. But that's just gonna be a long time from now since this one just came out. Anyway, leave a comment down below. Let me know if this camera is for you. How do you see you're gonna use it? Do you think Nikon is heading in the right directions? I'll be very interested in hearing everyone about how they feel about it, because I do see pretty extreme opinion so far. That's every camera that came out. Some people love it, some people hate it. Not lots in the middle. So hopefully that's a good thing. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.